Hi everyone and welcome back. I wanted to do a short video today as this particular issue came up in today's teaching talk. And I just want to say that I really appreciate when faculty attend and share some of these ideas because I think it really does allow opportunities to consider things that I didn't necessarily think of because we all encounter technology and teaching in different ways. So the specific issue we're going to be looking at today is some of your options for embedding YouTube videos in your Canvas pages. Now you might be wondering, well, why would I need to know that? Isn't it all the same? And it's actually not. So when we work through this, we discover there are actually 4 different ways that you can go about incorporating YouTube content in your pages and of course in your modules in a Canvas class. So we'll go through these 4 options. We'll talk about how these do matter in terms of 2 main areas, appearance and luck, and the second is function. We'll talk a little bit in terms of function how the first 3 options allow you to interact with YouTube in terms of its indices, its chapter content, while the 4th option would require you, just because of the way that Canvas Studio formats YouTube content uploaded to it, it allows you to not see the chapters, so you would almost have to do your own annotations to create your own chapter indices if that's something that you need in your class. Again, every single person who's teaching out there has a different use for YouTube. You may not even use YouTube. If you do use it, you might discover that one of these options is your best and you will consistently use that option when you're creating a class in Canvas. And then we'll close with a discussion of additional options if you wanted to upload videos into your files and answer the question, does YouTube content anywhere in your class impact file size limits in your class? So we'll talk about all that today as a way of hopefully discussing your options of working with YouTube in Canvas. So let's start looking at your first 3 options. This will either be a link and a return, a hard return on your keyboard, using the YouTube tool designed within the Canvas Rich Content Editor, or embedding HTML code using the HTML embed tool also found in the Rich Content Editor. All of these options will allow you to see the chapter indices that I think are a really useful part of a YouTube video. To begin with, I'm going to get my YouTube content and then I'm going to incorporate that in a test page here inside of Canvas. Again, if you're used to the old Rich Content Editor, I was working through this today and I was mentioning to our participant online saying, this is really new for me as well too, just trying to remember where everything is found. Again, in some cases you can find things in more than one place. In some cases you can only find things in one place. It's just how they have this set up. So this is a text edit menu, whereas this is more graphic icons. And I just saw an example of here. I can use the HTML editor here, or I'll see that similar symbol. So they've kept consistency in terms of the little icons or hieroglyphs, whatever you want to call them. So I could click HTML editor here. I could also click it here. So it's really your option. It's probably best to hunt around, and once you get used to everything, you'll know where to find it. If you don't use some of these tools in the Rich Content Editor, like I never use an equation editor, as a result, I never have to worry about that. If you're teaching math, you're probably always using that and maybe not using one of the other buttons, depending on what that is. So this is where we're going to do our testing here today, and to kind of prototype this, it's important to look at it in a Canvas page because you'll see these really do look different. Each of these 4 options have a different look, and one out of the 4 has a quite different function or use, if you will, in terms of comments and annotation, as well as whether or not you can look at the chapter indices. Now to get into these indices, what they look like, so this is a video I've created on my YouTube channel. I won't get into this, but when you create an index, it has to be your own content. So if you didn't create the video, you cannot create your own index. And what the index does, it's very useful. When I click on the video, it allows me in one of 2 places to see the content and quickly go to that content. And this is just a demo I did of a particular musical instrument, an unboxing demo. And so if someone wants to get to my discussion of DuPont gear interfacing, they click on this, it automatically takes them to that section of the video. Likewise, they can use the scroll bar here, and this gets tricky if you have a YouTube video that has really short, like this one here, you could see comes between 22:52 and 23:45 or so. As a result of that, sometimes they're hard to click on those if they're really teeny. If they're long sections, this is certainly your friend in terms of using the bar up here that allows you to quickly get to our chapters. Otherwise, if you ever get into really teeny ones that you have trouble clicking on or seeing, it only happens in 1 or 2 cases in my video. This one is still pretty decent. And usually what happens is you have to click near the beginning. If your mouse scrolls a little bit too far left, it selects the previous one. So that's a disadvantage of using this interface. What you would simply do is, if the comments are not displayed, you'd have to hit Show More, and then you choose your content here where you want that to show, and then once that clicks, you're immediately taken to that part of the video. So for me, this was important because this was a review of a particular piece of gear, and I know that a lot of music and tech people out there like to quickly jump to sections of videos. Now again, if this is not your video, if this is, I'll pick something here, I've been watching these random kind of travel videos of a guy who goes around Eastern Europe and visits places. So in this case, what you'll see is when I click Show More, nothing appears, and then there aren't any of those indices up here on the bar. What that means is this particular user, this content creator on YouTube, does not feel like chapters are important. So you have no way of creating your own chapters with a YouTube video unless you own that content. So it's just simply impossible to do it. The only way to do that is going to be in option 4 today, which is to upload that content to YouTube and then use an annotation to create your own chapter indices within that YouTube video that now lives, if you will, at least the version of it lives inside of Canvas Studio, although it's not necessarily taking up a lot of space in there since it's still hosted on YouTube. So what I can do with a video like this is we'll come back to that in option 4. But I'm mentioning this in the case of the first 3 options. Again, the first 3 options will involve some form of embedding a YouTube video inside of a Canvas page. I'm suggesting this because if you own the content, like in this case of mine here, I am able to edit these are almost like bookmarks, if you will. It's like an index, which allows you to go to that section of the video because I own the content. If I don't own that content, I'm out of luck, except for using option 4 today. So right now, let's just get into how I incorporate this into my Canvas page. Now, in every single case, you always want to look for right here, the share button. I really recommend you not, this could work up here if I go to the top of my page and click the URL, but I really recommend the share button. And I say that because if something is playing off of a playlist, like my mix, in some cases, this address up here will get inserted a prefix or a suffix, I forget which it is, that is giving it an identification as part of a playlist. And that playlist could get then incorporated in the address that you're sharing within your Canvas page, which is probably not a big deal, but it might confuse your students. So I really recommend not going to the top for this, but go right down here to the share button. And this is where you get a ton of options. And if you're sharing videos to all these various sites like LinkedIn and Blogger and Reddit, Pinterest, email, it typically is going to format that for that particular medium that it's working with. Your very simple URL to copy is going to be this one right here. You can select it with your mouse and you could hit your key, your command or option or Apple C and then paste it later, but it's even easier to hit the copy button here. If you want to start it at a specific spot, which I never would do, then it's going to assign a unique numerical code here. And as I change that, just to see, it changes it as well. And there probably is some sort of, let's just try another one here, code that goes along with it. And I'll let the math folks figure out what that is. It's obviously an algorithm of some sort converting time to this. So it maybe is some pure mathematical formula. But I don't wish to do that, so I'm going to unclick that. And I get that shorter version. Again, if I hit Start At, it's going to add that little tag at the end. If I don't, it's just this. So I'm going to hit copy. Later, for our HTML code option, we're going to click on the embed code, and it's going to appear a little bit different. And then it's going to give me some options for player as well as that option to start at. But right now I'm not concerned with the embed code for HTML. So again, to review, go back to share, click the copy button right here. It's now copied into my clipboard. It's now available to paste within my Canvas page. So let's now go back to our Canvas page. And just to remind us, this will be what I call a link and return. It's the simplest, but I want to argue with you that it may not look so great in terms of the actual format. And just to make things easy, I was just saying, just to make things easy, what I did was I'm just copying my text here, my headings from my PowerPoint slide. And then as we go through this today, I really want you to see and appreciate the difference in appearance. And this gets into kind of that high quality design that a lot of folks at the state level talk about in terms of Canvas pages. You know, the quality of your paragraphs, what something looks like, whether or not your text has, appropriate headings, if you use style sheets as you might in Word or PowerPoint, where you can really fine tune and customize things to give them a consistent look that you want. And I think it's the really kind of pro stage, if you will, of doing some of this inside of Canvas. So each of these eventually is going to get a video, and you're going to see the difference in my 4 options. So let's go with option 1. Now, as a reminder, we already have right now in our clipboard that unique URL or web address that I got from my YouTube video. So on my keyboard, I'm going to hit, for me, it's Command, or it looks like a little kind of symbol with a V. Sorry. Actually, because I copied those from my PowerPoint, I need to get this back again. So it's a good review for us. Go back to my share, hit copy. Now it's in my clipboard, because the last thing that was currently in my clipboard was the text I copied from PowerPoint. Now when I hit my paste, my V key, there you see that same URL. So that right there matches this here. Again, each of these is unique. So millions and tens of millions of different unique codes, which shows you how challenging it is, I think, for people to figure out the algorithms for this, just like with Bitly and those web address shorteners that are out there. It's really challenging with millions and millions and millions of pages of content to make sure that we don't have duplicates of these. And I'm sure YouTube has figured out and Google has figured out how to do that. So to go back to my page here in Canvas, this is my first option. So this is my link, and I hit the hard return or hard stop. So I hit it one time, and then we all know this is universal. This automatically populates it with that hyperlink because it's blue and underlined. Now as I hit save, you're going to see a small icon appears right there. And then what the student can do is they can hit play, and you're seeing this option here. I can still view then in options 1, 2, 3, you'll be able to view our chapter indices. Option 4, you won't. So be on the lookout for that. Now, the interesting thing about this is if I hit return, so as I hit play, it did take this and expanded the size of the window. If I hit Control R, refresh the page, it goes back to my small version. I personally was mentioning in the workshop today that I don't like the look of this. I just think it's a little wonky. It just looks, you can't really tell from the thumbnail what it is, and that's probably just a design issue with the content editor in Canvas. The nice thing is when you hit play, you get that full version. It allows you to share that. You can also click to watch it on YouTube. So I click there. This would be good for your students to know. And then it takes you to the full-fledged experience on YouTube, including all of the comments for that particular video. So the minute I refresh this page, again, it goes back to that less desirable thumbnail that we see here. So this is your option. And I just want to mention that for all of these options, you, with one exception, the YouTube tool, you do not get the option as you would with a graphics file to constrain the proportions or the ratio of the width and the height. So it's one thing you can do. If I go to any of my images and I click on one of those, just click a word cloud right here. The nice thing about it is I have the option of resizing on the fly. And what I love with the new content editor, they give you the dimensions. That's really handy if you're trying to constrain things. You see, as I'm moving my mouse, I'm actually getting the dimensions, the width and the height. So as I make it larger, it goes up to 321 to 217. Make it smaller, it goes down. Okay, so that's all and fine for images, not the case for video. And we won't get into the why that's the case, but I don't have that option except in one case, which is going to be with my YouTube tool. Okay, so option one to review is I get my unique URL. I go in and edit. I simply paste that in. I hit one return, and it immediately populates the link for that video. Let's try option two. So option two is going to be what I call the YouTube tool, and that's found up here in Canvas. So to get to this point, we first want to go back to the video that we want to embed. So let's just, for the sake of review, hit the share button. We'll copy that again. It's this exact same video. And we go back to our option two, and we're going to just put it here, and then we'll be able to see the differences in the appearance of what these look like on the page. Now, this is one of these where you have a couple places to insert the YouTube video. So I could either go to YouTube here, or I could go to, it's found under Tools and then Apps. Okay, so I would simply go to Tools and Apps and click YouTube. That appears, or as a review, we'll go back here. It's found under Apps, and eventually all of us, I'm still forgetting, that's the little symbol for an app. So I'll try to remember that, and then I won't have to hunt for it. But I click on YouTube, and then at this point, you can do one of two things. You can actually type a particular video title. So let's see if this shows up. I'm going to try to find my exact video of this device called the Bastille Castle 1.5, and I know there are quite a few videos on this device. Now, you're saying nothing's showing up. I have to do one important thing here. I have to hit my return key, and then the app does the search. So I hit the return key, and these are the things that pop up, and I look here, and oh, well, mine's actually here. Okay, so it is the third one down. So I can find an item there if I want. If I don't want to do that, I can also just paste in, using my paste key on the keyboard, the unique URL, and that should be only one hit for this. There are some exceptions. If you have a private, I doubt an unlisted, I think it'd be a private. If you had a private YouTube video, which you wouldn't have access to unless it's your own, and you put it here and you hit the return key, it likely won't show up and you'll get 0 results. Shouldn't happen typically, because if it's a private video, you actually wouldn't be able to do this at all, because a private video on YouTube requires permissions given to each unique user. Unlisted does not require permissions. It just requires that you have access to the unique address here, whereas public means that anyone can search and find that video and also would have access to the exact same address or URL. So I found it here. Now I have some choices to embed, and this is, I think, where it gets good. If I hit return link, you'll see it's very similar to the appearance of the first one with that link, except it gives it the title, it populates that, and it doesn't give the thumbnail. Once I click on that, it'll take me external and then do a really big version of that, actually. Pretty close to full screen. So if I don't want that, I could go back in and re-edit this. So let's go back to our same YouTube tool. Sorry, we're on option 2. I'll delete that. Now we can go in and go back to our apps, go back to YouTube. Again, we paste in here, and we have to hit the return key. And then we get our embed, small, medium, large. So we can do a small here. And you know what? Why not? Let's just do each of these, and then we'll get a real visual perspective of what this looks like. And I always hit, if you're adding multiple videos, don't forget to give a return, a hard return after your video, because you get into issues with spacing and trying to add more videos. I just find that it's a little clunky in this part of our rich content editor. So I'm going to search for that again. Now we want to do our medium. And for the sake of our demo, I'm going to hit return again, hit save, just get some nice spacing. So you're seeing these are growing, small, medium, large. Let's do our last one right here. Go back to our same tool. YouTube, we put in the URL, we hit our return. We're going to embed large at this point. And I'll do one more return. Hit save. Okay, so those are the options. And I suppose let's just go in and add, for the sake of clarity, that one option, which was our first one. I don't particularly like it. I think we live in a visual culture and we probably need at least the thumbnail version, some version of that. But we can put in just that return link. And again, you don't get to choose what it's called. I guess you could go in and edit that. There are some link options here. Yeah, you can edit the title if you like that. So that might be one reason to do it that way. But let's hit save here and you'll see what these look like. And then we have the one option that is no thumbnail, text only. Then we have small, medium, and large. I personally think on a page, just from a graphic design standpoint, that the large is a bit large. I typically like the medium or the small, my own preference, but use your own judgment in terms of laying this out. Okay, so that is option 2. I think it's pretty straightforward. Again, that is using that YouTube tool. That does require a few extra clicks from you in terms of finding the video and then hitting one of the 4 choices for the embed. Okay, so let's now go to option 3, and that's going to be HTML code. So for this, it's a little bit different step in terms of the code that we're going to get, or the address that we're going to get from YouTube. So we're going to find our place in our page where we want this. For this step, let's go to our video, and then we hit our share button. And instead of hitting copy here, we want our embed code. And this is kind of a universal symbol for HTML write-up. As you'll see in our HTML editor, this is very standard for the code that is done inside of HTML. So now when I do this, I do get this is just defining the video. This is the specific video here. So this inside here, if you know HTML, a lot of things and information is embedded, and then certain characters and certain conventions and syntax, just like syntax in language, defines what appears, and this really defines the beginning and end of the code bit that we're using. So a lot of this you're not going to change. If you know HTML write-up, if you've experienced or worked with it, you can actually change these dimensions here. So we could do that once we copy this and put it in the HTML editor. So if you don't like the width and the height, you could go in and actually customize it. So it's one way of adjusting the width and the height, which typically isn't available in a lot of these choices that we're talking about. So show player control would be fine. If we don't want that showing, or we do want it showing, it's just a little bit of an option to decide on. So I'm just going to hit the copy, and then that is copied into my clipboard. I go back to my page. Now at this point, I cannot copy it in here. If I copy that bit of code here, it makes no sense. That will appear as text, and let's just look at that as a mistake. And it just appears as text, so it's meaningless to Canvas. So what we need to do is take it out of there. It's not going to harm anything, but it's not going to make any sense. And if anything, any viewer of this would say, that person doesn't know HTML, because they wouldn't have done it that way. So what I'm going to do is either choose the option here, switch to HTML editor, or HTML editor here. They do the same thing. So I'll just click down here because it has that graphic that I remember. So now once I do that, you see I have all the code. And unfortunately at this level, you do get into sort of breaks, and you could mess up. You're not typically going to mess up a lot of aspects of your code. You just wouldn't want to paste something in the middle of anything like this that is defining a chunk of information. So these are all those videos that we already saw on the screen, and this is just our title, and it kind of makes sense, right? It's very intuitive. This is less information as code compared to this, because this is a graphic thumbnail and this is not. And then this is our one at the top, which was a very simple link. So again, very simple code. So I can just find out where this is, and I can go to that section, and I can hit, and if I make a mistake, all I have to do is go back and redo it. So I'm going to hit save, and it should automatically go back to the non-HTML view. And lo and behold, my video appears from the HTML paste, and I can view it there. And I was mentioning today in our teaching talk that in some cases you will see controls come up. I think that's because I chose the control version. Let's go back and do this a second time. We're just prototyping today. And this is, by the way, you're seeing my process. This is not a secret. This is how I work in all my technology that I work with daily, 7 days a week. I am prototyping and figuring stuff out, and it's trial and error. You know, I think you learn stuff, but you also continue to try and try new things. So let's go back to our embed code, and we're going to show the player controls. Let's leave that as off. Okay, changes the code a little bit. We're going to copy that. We copied that. That's our new code. Let's go back to this, and I'm going to edit. And we're going back to our HTML option. And I have enough spaces. I'll just give them a few more spaces. And then I'll go back to my HTML editor. I have to hit edit again because we're in regular view. And then I click here. And we'll go to the bottom. And I think you'll see here I put in all those spaces. So we'll put our new code in that has the player option off, and let's hit save, and let's just look at the difference of that, because I'm assuming one is giving us a playlist and one is not. Let's hit play there. No, the playlist still comes up. So it's a little bit different, I guess. The formatting is different. Watch later, share, that's all the same. More videos appears here versus on here. It does allow me to watch on YouTube. So I'm trying to look at the difference. The difference, I guess, in my mind initially, I haven't interacted with this, is fairly minimal. So again, as we're going through our 4 options today, you begin to see what these look like and how the appearance differs quite radically. And from a design perspective, you may want to think about this in terms of what will look the best for your students. So we just did option 3, that's our HTML code. Again, one option for option 3 is the following. If we don't like the size of this, we could increase by going in and adjusting the code. You don't have to do this. Again, you're not going to like cause a thermonuclear war like in war games or something by changing some lines of code. This is the height and the width. Now, there are some conventions out there that are referred to constraining the proportions. So there are like mathematical proportions between the width and the height of something. And you could go online and look some of this up. If you mess this up, I think it's just going to look a little wonky. So let's check that out. And I'm just going to pick random. These are no longer going to be proportional in terms of the width and the height. So I'm just going to put in some different numbers. We'll hit save and let's see what it looks like. Again, I'm not going to start a nuclear war. It looks a little bit different. So again, you can mess with that a little bit by going in and changing the proportions in your HTML code. It's very easy to do. You won't mess anything up. All I do is find that bit of code, and it's really the only numbers in there other than numbers that are in the unique URL. It's going to be these numbers that say width equals and height equals. I would just continue to change it. And if I make it really strange, like 110 and 200, then it's going to be really off. So we'll just see what that looks like. And there you go. That's pretty bad. So we don't want to do that. Now, the only disadvantage of doing this is if you forget and you do want proportions that make sense in terms of the width and the height, you just want to probably go back and change those back. And again, there are calculators online that will actually do this. So I believe it was 560 and 315. So I just found one here. You would type in something like aspect ratio calculator, and there are a bunch of examples that come up. So kind of the standards like 16:9, so-called letterbox, 4:3. If you just saw Zack Snyder's very long not a reboot really, a remake of Justice League, over 4 hours long. It was shot in 4:3, and there's a whole thing online if you want to look that up about how that works. But proportional image width height calculator. So what I would want to do if I want it to look fairly decent, I would put in a number here, 1000 for original and height. And for each of these, I could calculate then the width and the height. So it just kind of depends, and this will tell me kind of the correct number. These are all, again, different, and the mathematicians out there probably could do this in their head very easily. It's not something I could ever do in my head. And you can also learn about aspect ratios by clicking on articles like this, and I'm sure our art faculty could also have a conversation with us about this because there's a lot of that, of course, in graphic design. So I don't have to get too much into the weeds, but it's another way then of just going in. If I wanted to constrain the ratios, the proportion of my height and width, I could do that. I'll hit save here. I believe I went back to the original and it should look, yep, exactly like the original. Okay, so that's option 3, which is HTML code. Now, what I'm suggesting here is options 1, 2, and 3 have a particular appearance, and they allow you to see those chapter indices that I'm talking about and saying are very desirable, I think, to the YouTube viewer experience. In the case of option 4, you won't be able to view the chapter index. So let's look at what that looks like. So option 4 is I'm going to upload or embed, if you will, inside of Canvas Studio, my YouTube video. So what I want to do is, once again, I'm going to go back not to my HTML. I go back to my share button. I click the copy. It's in my clipboard. It lives there now. And what I'm going to do is I have to go into Canvas Studio. Now, a couple different ways to do that. When I hit the edit here, I could go into Canvas Studio at this point with this icon. And I can click the add button, and then it's going to do what I'm talking about here. Or if I'm doing this ahead of time and I want to populate Canvas Studio, maybe create a particular playlist or a particular collection, as they're called in Canvas Studio, I would want to click on my tab here, the vertical menu, and click on the studio icon right there. Once I've done that, and this is one I had in earlier from our teaching talk, I'm going to delete that. At this point then, I could create a collection, or I could actually just upload it. And I'm saying upload, I really believe what's happening here is that a proxy is being placed inside of Canvas Studio, and it's not, because I'm sure the speed at which this happens, you're going to see, there's no way it's actually uploading. I think it's just embedding a link and then populating that through code inside of your Canvas page. So I click on the right-hand corner here and hit the add button. All I'm going to do is paste in my URL that we've been working with and hit the add button. And look how quick this is. It's right there. Okay, and I say it must be absolutely not uploading it, because this is a very long video, 1 hour 20 minutes. Some of you know I'm known for long videos. Some of you like to point that out, and I am, you know. And you could see here it's automatically available inside of Canvas Studio. So there's no way practically it could have uploaded an 1 hour and 17-minute video inside our Canvas shell. So it's somehow creating a proxy here, which is pretty slick, and then allowing that to live inside of Canvas. Because look, I hit the play button and it's already going, the entire video, without any delay or latency. So there's no way it's uploading that into Canvas. It's putting a proxy in. So that now exists inside of my Canvas Studio as one of my mini videos, and these exist alongside videos I've recorded. Again, if I want to create collections of just my YouTube content, I could do that. And this is not taking up any space in your Canvas shell. It's not taking up any space inside our Canvas Studio account. So that's kind of cool. That's available here. I can share it, I can annotate it, I can create a quiz. And that's one advantage of using Canvas Studio is if you want a quiz, the only way to really do that is inside of Canvas Studio. And I'm going to add that on the fly here because that is not something you can do with these other 3 options that we went through. So to go back to our Canvas class page, let me get back to that class. And here is that page we've been working with. So we're going to option 4. So let's hit edit once again. We'll scroll all the way to the bottom because that's where that header is. Okay. Hit a couple returns. Now, once again, I can do this in multiple places. I can go to Tools and click on Canvas Studio under Apps. So it's a little more clicking, or I immediately go right here to Canvas Studio. The window opens up, the browser. I see all my content. At this point, I can add additional content. So right from here, I can add more YouTube videos. I can keep doing that, and they will quickly populate. But this is the one I want, so I'm going to hit Select. Now at this point, you have the option of allowing comments or not. So again, if you want to have comments in your Canvas video that is a YouTube video, this would really be the best place and only place. in which you can do that, other than, say, a discussion board or some sort of assignment. But this is really easy because it embeds that comment box right as part of that shell of your video. So I hit the embed. I'm going to hit save, and maybe I'll do a return just in case I want to add content below. And once you hit save, you'll see what this looks like. This is option 4. What's really cool about this, and in terms of the aspect ratio, it is very similar to, it's actually kind of more, I want to say this is the closest to 16:9. I don't know, just eyeballing it. So it's a pretty good one. It's not as blocky as this one. And you can see the format here is a little bit different. So I can adjust the playback speed, I can toggle the comments on and off, and I can do full screen. So it's a little more full-fledged. This is the point where we get into some reduced functionality. We add functionality and we take some away. So the thing we can't do from here that you can do anywhere here is access our chapter indices. Again, I can immediately do that from my browser inside the Canvas page. On most of these options, on every single option, if I click the YouTube icon, I can immediately go to YouTube. This one as well, because once I hit play, it appears here. Once I hit the YouTube logo, it takes me off-site. I'm moved away from Canvas, and I'm only on YouTube. And the advantage of that is you can interact with other playlists, with similar content that gets populated by the algorithms within YouTube. And you can view your comments, and the comments actually could be significant maybe for some assignment you're doing. You can also control the captioning and other things like mini player, theater mode, AirPlay for Mac, and that kind of fun stuff. So there are advantages of going external to Canvas to view some of these videos. So the thing that goes away then, in all these cases, I can view my chapter indices. You might be saying, well, why isn't that the case here? When I hit play, the reason is, in a sense, what's happening is Canvas, and I kind of hate how there's a playlist up there, but I can click the X and it goes away. Canvas is throwing up its own running bar here because it allows you to annotate and add comments. So what I suggested to someone in our teaching talk today is, if you want to use Canvas Studio, and you want to re-add these, unless you tell your students click on YouTube. Once you click on YouTube, you'll have access to the indices here and also here. Or it's not your content, and let's say it's a video like this one here that the particular content creator didn't, for whatever reason, it wasn't useful, didn't attach chapter subheadings. As a result of that, you want to create some, maybe 4 or 5 to show students where to go to. This is where you would do that, and this is actually pretty cool. So here, I could click on 1241. Okay, I'm going to type my comment, and let's just type in a word here like section 1. Okay, notify me of replies. It's up to you. Comment at 1241. Okay, call that section 1. Now let's pretend section 2 is at 3520. Hit comment at 3520. Now what's cool about this is Canvas Studio is creating its own structure that is, I'm sure, inspired by the chapter indices feature within YouTube. So instead of it being up here or down here as more of a table of contents format, they're putting it in 2 places. They're putting a little flag or pin if a comment exists, and then down here, just like on YouTube, very similar to this here, in our, I would almost call that the table of contents view, you click on that and it takes you to that point in the video. So that's actually really slick. I think it's great design. I love the look of this player. In some ways, it's my favorite version of all these. You know, they have a good aspect ratio. It looks nice, and I love the overlay of this. I love that you can adjust the playback speed. You can immediately go to full screen, and I love the fact that you can do comments. So here's my recommendation. If you want any form of interaction of students, if a student wants to ask a question, you assign a YouTube video, and they get to a point in the video right here, and they say, you know, I really don't understand whatever they type, you hit that comment, okay? And then it also shows up here. Very cool, right? And so if I reply to that, type in some kind of text, whatever that is, and then you get a string of conversations going. So this is more that idea of annotating. And then what's cool about this is students can interact with it at different levels, up here, through both of those icons. You also get, if a person has their avatar picture, you get an image of that person. And then they can also click down here and reply. So if you want students to interact with any of your content on YouTube, in terms of doing annotations, in terms of making comments, in terms of getting insights about who has viewed something and how much they viewed it, this is definitely your go-to option. There are no other options out there. You can also do captioning here, which YouTube does a great job of captioning, and I can also click on the details and edit that a little bit if I want to give my own instructions. This is just populated with whatever description is received from YouTube. And really what this is, and the spacing is wonky here, because what they do is they just take whatever text the content creator has created and they put that in. So that is what you're seeing right there. And you see the spacing goes away. And there aren't commas or anything like that, because when you put this in, the convention is you have to always start your comments with a 0:00. Once you do that, YouTube knows that you want to do chapter indices, and then you hit a hard return, you hit the text to display, and then the time, and that gets indexed. So that's exactly what you're seeing here. If you want to change that to whatever, you would just type that, and then the new description is there. And there was also an option for a tag as well. And tags could be kind of handy, perhaps. Let's see what will happen there. I think there's probably a way inside of Canvas Studio then to actually search for tags. I haven't tried that yet, so I'm not going to comment on that, but this is kind of the basic overview. So this will show us then all the students who's interacted with it, and again the comments are here. I can click on the time bar. It takes me to that point in the video. I can click on a pin. I can click on a comment up top. And it's just a really nice interface. So if you want that functionality of students interacting with the video, this is your only option, Canvas Studio, as we've talked about. It's not uploading it to Canvas Studio, it's just putting a placeholder, a proxy, and then that becomes a part of your page. I think graphically it's the most attractive of all of these options, and it has really the best function. Again, for me, this one does not look great. I don't personally like just a single link, and these are fine, certainly. But I think in some cases, if the video has a title or not, if the title is not reflective of the content, you might have to go in, as I did here, and put in your own headings and instructions. Again, we're just putting the video options in here today, but you would want to go around and work on all the other aspects of the graphic design of your particular page. So any kind of functionality in terms of interaction with the video, in terms of comments, your only option then will be option 4. Keep in mind, if you go with option 4, you're going to lose the in-player ability to view. Actually, in this option on the HTML, this is explaining some things. So in option 2, we didn't want the player to appear. If you click option 2, those indices also go away. So that's the one major thing that changes. So if you're concerned about having the chapter indices appear, the option here will not allow for that unless you create your own. But that could get a little confusing if you're using this for section heads and also comments. So think about that. Again, it's hard to say for every faculty member because it is definitely not something that is the same from one person to another. And I'm just noting here that it actually stuck my video above my heading for option 4, so I could go back and fix that. But those are the 4 options. So you just look down the page. We had option 1, option 2 with the 4 different options within it, including 3 different sizes, HTML write-up with and without the player, and then option 4 is Canvas Studio. So again, as you think about these options in your Canvas page, think about the appearance, 1, the look of your video in terms of the thumbnail or not, the size of it, the aspect ratio, and then think about the function. Do you want to be able to see the chapters and the index? Do you want comments and annotations and quizzes? Depending on your answer to that, I think you'll be guided either to one of these three options here, whichever you prefer, or option 4. Option 4, most useful for creating your quizzes through Canvas Studio and for creating comments and annotations and that rich functionality that you see only in the Canvas Studio YouTube upload option. And to kind of close things out today, there are other options, of course, inside of your Canvas class to work with media. So obviously I can upload and create media on the fly through Canvas Studio. I have other videos on this. I can use, for example, the upload and record media. So I could drag a file here if that was a video file, and then that would get loaded into my class. At this point, if I'm uploading anything into my class, either through that function or through my Files tab, which I generally, there's one case with the digital media instructor where I said, I think for what you're trying to do, I would definitely recommend uploading video inside of your files, just because she's trying to get students to download video files and then reuse those in their own video projects. So in order to do that, you really do need to either use the functionality within Files or Canvas Studio. But that's kind of a very specific case for a video class. So I wouldn't recommend uploading any YouTube videos inside of your Files tab, because that will count against your limits. And you do have 20 gigabytes available to you. That's actually found under your settings. If you ever get stuck, you could always talk to Treva about this. I actually looked at our entire usage as a college, and we're only around a terabyte, and a terabyte is nothing for like somewhere around 500,000 files or something like that. So we actually don't use a lot statewide, I would say, compared to a lot of colleges. Of course, we're a small college, but 1 terabyte for the whole college for storage is next to nothing. I mean, I have a couple 8 terabyte drives in front of me, and if you do a lot of video work at large resolution, you know that takes up a ton of space. Typically, if I'm working with a big video file that's rendered with good resolution, that could be anywhere around 4 to 10 gigabytes if it's an hour-long video. You should be okay though. 20 gigs is quite a bit, particularly if you're working with lower resolution. But again, everything I've talked about today, Canvas Studio, and those three options of doing a page and going in and specifically doing a YouTube link, none of those count against your storage limit. So you should be in pretty good shape. If you get into something where you want to use your files section to upload videos, send me a message. Let's set up a quick Zoom, because I might talk you out of that and say you probably don't need to do that. You want to use Canvas Studio because it has, for practical purposes, unlimited storage capacity for each of our accounts. And in a lot of cases, if I downloaded my video from YouTube, or a video from YouTube, which typically you can't do directly from YouTube, you have to go to a site that is a YouTube downloader and just type YouTube downloader to find that. But what's the point of doing that? I would be eating up space inside my class under my files, whereas I could just link directly to YouTube. YouTube, of course, is a video repository and content providers, so I shouldn't use space inside of Canvas that's very precious and that's going to get eaten up maybe by my own graphics files or my own videos. But even if it's my own videos, I always would point you to Canvas Studio to go inside there, create a collection, and save it there. And again, I recently sent a video out about Zoom and some issues with Zoom storage, so that's another issue to think about. If you have a lot of Zoom videos that go back to those dates I mentioned in my last email and video, definitely want to get those out of Zoom, download them, and then immediately either save them on your computer or add them to Canvas Studio, because those will go away. And please refer to that previous email and video I sent out on that particular topic. So I talked at length today, but I really wanted to give you some good insights about functionality and appearance of YouTube videos as you upload them into your class in one of those 4 ways. Again, I think going through this is a great example of prototyping, where someone raises a question at a workshop and then a little light bulb goes off in my head and I say, oh, this is actually something I didn't think of. Let me share it with the rest of the faculty. And that's really how I'm approaching the position and the work that I'm doing as an advocate for all of you. So please attend the workshops. Please send me emails. Sometimes a question you have will then, through this prototyping process, become a video or an additional training that we can do, because the discovery is made that indeed, in this case, there's more than one way to embed a YouTube video into your Canvas page. 4 ways exactly. So other questions, other issues come up about videos, about audio, anything like that, just send me an email. I'll be glad to set up a Zoom workshop time with you, and we could talk about this one-on-one or as a group. So thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more videos here in the future.